What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to talk about why this debt ceiling debate, why this is a waste of time, and why this is going to impact every American when it doesn't really have to. This is a political game, and I'm going to prove it to you in this video, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we post a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. Okay, so why is this a political game? I'm going to show you. Let me show you this illustration, and we're going to dive into this illustration because it's very, very simple when it comes to the debt ceiling. And let me just start off, even before we read this tweet. This is a tweet from Speaker McCarthy, and he just posted this. I believe it was yesterday. So today's Sunday. I believe he posted it either on Saturday or maybe late Friday. But what is the debt ceiling? So think of the debt ceiling, and I'm trying to simplify this just so we're all on the same page when it comes to the debt ceiling. So the debt ceiling is we've spent money already. And that money, we need to pay that bill. So if you think of it as a credit card, we've already spent the money and it's coming to the end of the month and you need to pay your credit card. And so that's what this is all about. That's what the debt ceiling is all about. Now, we have another thing called the budget. Now, the budget is something that Congress needs to put together a budget for 2024 and beyond. And so they control this. When I say they, I'm talking about Congress. I'm talking specifically about Speaker McCarthy, Leader Schumer. They're the ones that control this because Congress, they control the purse. They control the money. This has nothing to do with the president and the White House. They don't control the purse. Okay, sure, they sign off on bills, but they don't control the money. The money is coming from Congress. So when we're looking at this and when we're hearing about this debate and how they want to tie the debt ceiling to the budget and pass the bill at the same time, I won't say the same time, they want to pass the bill together. So they want the debt ceiling in order to raise the debt ceiling so we can pay our bills. They want to tie the budget to that. And so that's what we're looking at right now. And that's why there's this big uproar. That's why you have this debate going on, because you have Congress. And when I say Congress, I'm talking about the leadership in Congress. So you have Speaker McCarthy and his leadership. They want to move forward with doing both of them at the same time. Whereas the White House is saying, no, we're not going to do both at the same time. What we want and what I will sign off on is raising the debt ceiling, and then we can debate about the budget. But do them separate. Don't do them together, because when you do them together, you're going to have people that are going to say, most politicians right now will agree that the debt ceiling needs to be raised. But when it comes to the budget, you're going to have different politicians saying different things. Some politicians are going to want to save in this area. Some politicians are going to want to save in other areas. But when it comes to the debt ceiling, the majority of politicians want to raise the debt ceiling. And most politicians want to raise the debt ceiling because they don't want us to go into default, because default will crash our economy. And so that's why they're in favor of raising the debt ceiling. And so now that we have that out of the way, we know that most politicians are in favor of raising the debt ceiling. And when it comes to the budget, you're going to have different ways, different strategies when it comes to saving money. But when it comes to the debt ceiling, all the politicians are pretty much on the same page. They want to raise the debt ceiling. They do not want to default. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead. I want to look at this tweet, and we're going to talk a little bit about this because I think this is important for us to kind of focus on what this plan is. And this is I'm doing this oversimplified. I'm not going into the details of what's in this plan. I'm just going off what Speaker McCarthy thinks are the major points of this plan. And so let's just look at the top here first. It says the Biden White House claim the Republican plan to responsibly lift the debt ceiling would literally melt bones. Okay, so that was a quote that he's taking, I believe it was from President Biden. And then he says, get serious here. Now, this is what we really want to focus on, because this is what he's looking at. When I say he, I'm talking about Speaker McCarthy, what he sees as the key points of this plan that he wants to move forward. He says, our plan claws back billions of unspent COVID money and limits spending levels to what they were 4 months ago. Okay. Now let's take the first part here. When he's talking about the unspent money, that, to my knowledge, is automatic. In 2024, that money will be rolled back. So basically, during COVID, we were giving states a lot of money. And so the federal government was giving the states a lot of money so we can all address the issue, the COVID issue. And so some of that money could not be spent because it had to be spent on COVID-related things. And so now that money can't be spent. And so it's just sitting. The states just have the money. And so that's why you saw last year we had these relief checks and we had the gas vouchers and all this different stuff, these different little stimulus checks that were going out, but it was by the states. The states were sending out these checks. That's because they had money left over and they were trying to disperse that money. So there's still money left over. And so that money automatically will expire and go back to the federal government. So this right here, this is going to happen regardless. Okay. Now there might be some other money that I don't know about that maybe Speaker McCarthy sees that, okay, we need to claw back that money as well. But their money will be going back to the federal government that was unspent. So we already know that. Now, when it comes to the spending levels, okay, we're rolling back, he says 4 months. Now, he's saying 4 months because he's rolling it back to 2022, when in reality, the budget for 2022 is what he's talking about, okay? So he's not rolling it back just 4 months. He's actually rolling it back to what we saw in 2022 as far as a budget. Now, most government agencies, when it comes to their budget, they get a little bit more each year, and there are reasons for that. Just think about the cost of living adjustment. So if you're working, you still get a cost of living adjustment generally, especially if you're working for the government. When I work for the government, every year there would be a cost of living adjustment. It'd be like 2%, maybe 3%, but we would see that, and that was to offset inflation. And so just like COLA for Social Security beneficiaries, it's the same applies to people who are working for the government. And so when it comes to a situation like this, cost of living adjustment, that will be an increase to your actual salary. So if you're looking at a budget, let's say the budget for 2022, it's going to be a certain amount, but then they increase it generally just a little bit because you need to, because in order to pay your employees, once that cost of living adjustment kicks in, then that agency is going to need a little bit more money to pay their bills, right? And so that's one thing. And then you have other things. I mean, you have a situation where if you're working, usually you get a raise you might get a raise every year, every couple of years. And so that will increase the budget. Okay, so you're going to need more money for that. You also will have people retire. And when you have people retire, you have one of two choices. You can either leave that spot open or you can fill that spot. If you fill that spot, you're going to have to pay for training. Now, you might not have to pay that employee the same amount that the retired employee was getting, but you still have to train them and get them up to speed. And so that's going to cost money up front. And in certain situations, they just don't fill it because they don't have the money. So if the agency doesn't have the money, and Social Security was saying this, that you had a lot of people retiring or just leaving and going somewhere else because they can make more money somewhere else. And so if they leave, now you have to bring someone else in and you have to train that person, and you might even have to pay them a little bit more because you have to pay them a comparable wage. If you don't, then they're just going to go somewhere else, or they're not going to accept the job at all. And so the Social Security Administration was struggling to find people to work in the Social Security Administration. And because they were struggling finding people to work for the Social Security Administration, it meant that we had a bog down when it came to Social Security Administration and their customer service, as well as when they receive applications for disability and things like that. We were seeing long wait times of almost a year, even over a year for some people. And so those are some of the problems that you might see if they roll back the budget to 2022. And that's what they want to do in their current plan. Okay, so now that we've looked at some of the issues when it comes to this whole debt ceiling debate and this debt ceiling plan that was put forward by the House, and it was passed by the House, by the way, if you didn't know that. So they passed in the House. It's going to need to go to the Senate. The Senate is not going to do anything with it. They've already indicated that. And so we're going to be looking at a bill that is not going to go anywhere, and they're going to have to come to the table. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we know the plan is to put these bills together, pass them together. That is what the House wants to do. Now, the White House has already indicated they're not going to do that. Okay, the White House is not for that. They're not signing off on anything like that. What the White House wants to do is they want Congress to address the debt ceiling, raise the debt ceiling, and then we can talk. We can talk about the budget. Now, that seems to me, in my opinion, that seems like the sensible way of doing things. However, there's a trust issue. Democrats don't trust Republicans. Republicans don't trust Democrats. And so if Republicans, the way they feel in the House, if you raise the debt ceiling, then we will never address the budget. That's the way they feel. They think, okay, they'll raise the debt ceiling, and then when it comes to when we need to talk about the budget, no one's going to do anything when it comes to the budget. And the Republicans will look at it in the House. They'll look at it and, well, we lost because we raised the debt ceiling, which it's a bad strategy in the sense that you are using the debt ceiling, using our full faith and credit of the United States and all the talking points that you hear mainly from Democrats right now when it comes to this whole discussion. But you're using the debt ceiling, the possibility of a default, the possibility of us crashing our economy in order to get a budget. Okay. Now, when we talk about this budget, you would think in this budget, we would be paying down the deficit. And so in 10 years, our deficit would be reduced. That's what you would think. But you had 3 or 4 Republicans that actually voted against, 4 Republicans in the House that voted against this whole debt ceiling bill that they put together in the House. And the reason that they voted against it is because this plan does not bring down our debt. It doesn't bring down our deficit. And in 10 years, you'll still be looking at an increase of about $19 trillion when it comes to our debt. And so if we're looking at a situation where you put a plan together and in that plan, it doesn't do the thing that you've been talking about you wanted to do, then obviously you need to do some more work on the plan. And the main reason why it's not paying down the debt is because it's hard to do. It's going to be very hard to do. And we didn't just get into debt overnight, so it's going to take a little bit of time in order for us to get out of debt. And there are going to be some huge sacrifices that are going to need to be made. And right now, you can't do it. And so it's good to put plans together to address the budget. And I think on both sides, you have Democrats and Republicans, not all Democrats, not all Republicans, but you do have Democrats and Republicans that want to address our debt. Now, you do have more Republicans talking about the debt and we need to pay down the debt. But the reality is it's going to be very painful to do that. And the fact that we're trying to put them together and basically cram this bill together, and this bill is not going to address the major reason for the bill, for this whole budget plan to bring down our deficit. If it's not going to bring down our deficit, then maybe we should be raising the debt ceiling and then taking a hard look at the budget in a separate bill. Now, what you can do, you could, and this is what I hope happens, I hope they say, okay, we're going to raise the debt ceiling, but we're going to have conditions. And let's say they raise the debt ceiling, they put together, and this is already being talked about in the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House. They've said, you know what, raise the debt ceiling, but we'll put together a special commission. They like putting together commissions. That's just the way things work in Congress. And in that commission, they will address the budget. But you're going to raise the debt ceiling, but then they will address the budget. And so if you already put that in place, you know that you're going to have Democrats and Republicans that are going to sit down in this commission and try to figure out the best way out of our problem when it comes to our debt. And so hopefully that's the resolution that we see before we go into default. And so we're just going to have to, I mean, this is one of those things where it only gets worse the longer we wait. Because you have right now, you have corporations watching, you have Wall Street watching, you have the American people watching. And as it gets closer to this deadline, which, I mean, the deadline right now, we don't have an exact date. We know June or July is when we could see a default. And the reason why we don't have a concrete number is because we have to look at the tax receipts. We need to know how much the federal government actually brought in when it comes to revenue in order to know exactly when we're going to run out of money, okay? And so in the future, in the very near future, we're going to continue to hear about this whole debt ceiling debate. But I think the only way out right now is for Congress to go ahead and raise the debt ceiling like they've done years in the past and put a commission together, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to have to put a commission of Democrats and Republicans. Let Speaker McCarthy choose this commission, choose the members in the commission, and then move forward that way. Because if you don't, it's going to be a lot worse. And it's unfortunate, but you do have some politicians that don't care if we go into default. They don't care. They don't care if our economy tanks. And it's sad, but they could see this as a political gain. If our economy tanks, it's a political gain for them. And then they're hoping that in 2024 they can use this against President Biden and they can win the presidency. That is the long game that they're playing here. But the American people are going to suffer during that time, because you're going to have people losing their job. You're going to have people's 401ks and other retirements really take a hit. You're going to have people who are currently on Social Security, veterans. They're going to also take a hit, because if our economy tanks, that means that we're not going to have money for these different agencies to do their job. And so Social Security Administration, Veterans Affairs, they're not going to have the money they need in order to do their jobs. Now, will the benefits still go out? Yes, they will still go out, but you're going to have a reduced workforce, which could mean delays in your benefits going out. So that's something else to think about. But I want to know what you guys think about all this, so let me know down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.